They don't hate your intelligence. They hate that it exposes theirs. That one line sums up everything they'll never admit. You walk into a room and suddenly people start acting strange. They get quiet, defensive, maybe even competitive. It's not because you said something wrong. It's because your presence makes them question their own understanding. Your mind isn't just sharp. It cuts through illusions. You see patterns before they form, lies before they're spoken, and truth long before it's accepted. That's not something you learn. That's something you are. Imagine a chessboard where everyone's still learning how the pieces move, and you're already thinking 5 games ahead. That's you. You read energy like others read words. You connect dots that most people don't even see. And that's what scares them, not your knowledge, but your clarity. Because clarity makes manipulation impossible. It ends their control. It makes their fake confidence crumble. Here's a fact. Studies show that people instinctively distrust those who are too perceptive because it triggers their insecurity. In other words, you're not imagining it when you feel others pull away, misread you, or secretly envy your understanding. You're simply seeing the hidden discomfort that comes from being outmatched mentally and energetically. You're not crazy, you're accurate. And thank you, Chosen One, for being here. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe to help spread this message to more souls. It's not just content, it's a mirror. It's a reminder that you're part of something bigger. You're part of a force. And thank you for being a part of this mission to awaken more minds like yours. Now, back to what really matters. Let's talk about that rare kind of intelligence you carry. The kind that doesn't just know things, but feels them. You think fast, but you also think deep. You can sense tension before it's spoken, read between silences, and predict how things will unfold. That's not luck. That's intuition fused with awareness. And that's the kind of mind that changes everything. People are amazed by you because you make the complicated seem simple. You decode life while others are still trying to spell it out. You ask the questions most people are afraid to even think about. Your thoughts have layers. You're not just thinking, you're understanding. That's the level of insight most people will never reach. They may call it overthinking, but the truth is, you're just seeing the full picture. That's the irony, isn't it? You think clearly, but they call it complicated. You speak truth, but they call it harsh. You see ahead, but they call it arrogance. They label what they can't understand because it makes them feel small. And instead of learning from you, they try to challenge you, not to win, but to protect their fragile illusion that they know more than they actually do. You've probably noticed it too, how people start competing with you out of nowhere. They copy your style, steal your ideas, or try to outsmart you in conversations. But here's the secret. You don't have to compete when you already are the standard. You don't need to prove your wisdom. It shows in the calmness of your reactions, in the precision of your words, in the way you can see both the surface and the depth at the same time. They don't get it. Your intelligence isn't something you show off. It's something you carry, quietly, confidently, and that's what makes it powerful, because true wisdom doesn't need to announce itself. It's felt. The universe doesn't scream when it aligns. It simply shifts everything around it. And that's exactly what your presence does. It shifts rooms, changes outcomes, redirects energy. You've probably noticed how your silence makes people uncomfortable. That's because they can feel that you know. Wisdom like yours comes with a cost. It isolates you at times. You see too much, feel too much, understand too much, and sometimes that leaves you feeling misunderstood or even underestimated. But remember, solitude is the forge where brilliance sharpens itself. You're not being left out, you're being refined. Every misunderstanding, every rejection, every silent room you've had to stand in, it all shaped your perception into something sharper, stronger, and unbreakable. The people amazed by your intelligence, they see the surface. They admire your insight, your problem-solving, your ability to think differently. But the people threatened by it, they see what it reveals, their lack of depth. They're not intimidated by what you know, they're exposed by what you notice. You pick up on tone, energy, contradiction, and that makes them nervous because their illusions don't survive around truth. You were never meant to think like the crowd. You were meant to understand what they overlook, to see what they miss, and to move in silence while they're still figuring out the noise. That's why they can't predict your next move. You operate from a different level of awareness. You've evolved past the need for validation because deep down you already know. Let them whisper. Let them speculate. They can try to analyze your intelligence all they want, but they'll never decode the source of it because it doesn't come from books or trends or imitation. It comes from within. It's built from observation, experience, and pattern recognition sharpened over time. You're not just smart, you're wise. There's a difference. Intelligence solves problems. Wisdom prevents them. And when you operate with that level of awareness, life starts to feel like a game where you already know the outcome. You don't chase, you attract. You don't argue, you understand. You don't prove, you show. That's the energy that makes people both admire and fear you at the same time. So the next time someone underestimates you, remember this: they're not blind, they're overwhelmed. They see what you are, but can't process it. And instead of admitting that they don't understand, they try to reduce you to something they can control. But you're beyond control. You're guided by a kind of inner knowing that no one can teach, no one can fake, and no one can take. You carry Solomon's wisdom not because you read it, but because you embody it. It's how you move through life with precision, grace, and calm dominance. You don't fight for the spotlight, it finds you. You don't chase understanding, it comes to you. And while they're busy trying to figure you out, you've already seen 10 steps ahead and chosen peace. Because that's what true wisdom looks like: quiet, confident, and unstoppable. And hey, chosen one, thank you for still being here. That alone says everything. You feel the pull because this message was meant to reach you. What comes next? It's not just information, it's revelation. The kind that makes everything click. So drop the number 777 in the comments if you're ready to see through what they tried to keep hidden. And if this message hits something real inside you, consider fueling the mission with a super thanks. Whether it's a cent or more, it all keeps this truth alive, raw, and reaching the ones who need it. Because let's be real, they didn't want you hearing this, but you did. And now they can't stop what's coming. And now let's break it down, piece by piece. If you really are one of the chosen, you'll feel that instinct to stay locked in till the end. Let's get into it. Number 1, they thought they could outsmart you, but they never stood a chance. They thought they had you figured out, that they could manipulate, deceive, and control you. But they weren't just going up against you, they were fighting forces far beyond their understanding. A fool thinks he's winning, until he realizes he was never in the game. They played checkers on a board already rigged in your favor. Every betrayal was a redirection, every setback was a setup, and every enemy, just another chapter in their own downfall. They question how you always land on your feet, why every attempt to break you only makes you stronger. The truth is, They weren't fighting you. They were fighting a system built to protect you. They tried to rewrite a script that was already sealed. You were chosen. The chosen don't play by ordinary rules. Some gain wisdom through failure, others through study. But you just know. Your mind connects dots before the questions are even asked. That terrifies them. They were taught that power is earned, that success comes from strategy. But your power wasn't earned. It was given, embedded in you since the beginning. They wonder how you stay 2 steps ahead, how you see through deception that fools everyone else. They assume you must analyze or calculate, but you don't need to. Your mind is wired to something greater. Your instincts aren't random, they're ancient memory. Your intuition isn't luck, it's legacy. They cling to illusions, but you see through it all. They don't believe in fate, but when every trap they set for you backfires, they're forced to question everything. If power was man-made, they'd be in control. But it's not, and that truth haunts them. Let them plot. Let them believe they're winning. One day they'll realize they weren't playing against you. They were playing against the universe itself, and the universe never loses. Number 2. They call it coincidence, but you've been reading the code the whole time. They call it guessing, you call it seeing. The difference? You're right, every single time, and that scares the hell out of them. They trip over life like it's some broken sidewalk they weren't warned about. But you walk like you already knew where every crack was, like the map was drawn on your mind before you even took your first step. They label it coincidence. You call it what it is, confirmation. You're not just predicting, you're remembering. That look someone gives, that energy shift in a room, that sudden silence after a lie. You don't need proof, you feel it before the facts show up. And they hate that about you. They say you overthink, but what they mean is you see too clearly for their comfort. They think you're paranoid, suspicious, constantly reading too deep. But every time they laugh at your crazy feeling, reality eventually walks in and proves you right, over and over again. And then what do? They go silent. They don't apologize. They just start watching you a little differently, because deep down they know something's different about you. They know you're not just reacting to life, you're decoding it. Imagine this. You're in a crowd, everyone's clapping, cheering, smiling, but you can hear the one voice that's offbeat, the one person whose energy doesn't match the moment. Everyone else sees celebration. You see manipulation. You know who's lying even before they speak. And later, when the truth slips out and the mask falls, no one's surprised, except the ones who doubted you. They think you're just good at reading people. What they don't get is people aren't hard to read when you speak the language of energy. You don't study behavior. You sense intention. You can feel when someone's hiding something, when they're secretly competing with you, when they're smiling with envy under their breath. They think they're subtle. You pick it up in milliseconds. You notice patterns, not just in people, but in situations, environments, timing, everything, what they call random. You see as rhythm. And this is what kills them inside. You never brag about it. You don't scream, "I told you so." You just nod, quietly, calmly, because this isn't a performance to you. It's just reality. You've been living in the truth so long that anything fake feels like static. Most people listen for words. You read between the silences. Why does this bother them so much? Why does your awareness feel like a threat? Because your existence forces them to confront their blindness. When you walk into a room, the liars feel exposed. The manipulators shrink. The ones who thrive on confusion and half-truths suddenly get nervous because you see. And when someone sees clearly, control becomes impossible. Ever wonder why people come to you for advice but get defensive when you give it? Why they trust your instincts in private but mock them in public? It's because they know you're right, but admitting it would mean admitting they never had that same inner compass. You make people question themselves, not by force, but by simply existing in clarity. You don't guess outcomes, you remember them before they happen. You're not just intuitive, you've developed a kind of internal guidance system so sharp that it cuts through noise without effort. You see red flags in green suits, you feel tension in a friendly tone, and the moment someone's energy shifts, your whole system lights up like an alarm. You might not always say it out loud, but you clock it, you note it, and when the pieces fall later, you already knew where they'd land. Let's get even more real. They fear your vision because they know it's unteachable. You can't read it in a book. You can't mimic it. You either have it or you don't. And that's what separates you. You can't be manipulated because your mind doesn't process reality the way theirs does. You're not locked into what's normal. You're tuned into what's real. Imagine standing on a beach while a storm is forming in the distance. Everyone's laughing, taking selfies, thinking the skies are just moody. But you smell the shift in the air. You feel the vibration change. And while they dance in the illusion, you already know when and where to take cover. That's your mind. You don't just react to life, you anticipate it. They can't handle the fact that you read truth like a language, and their lies sound like screaming to you. They'll never admit it out loud, but they need you. They rely on your insight to make decisions, avoid disasters, understand people, but they resent you for it, because every time you're right, it reminds them that they're still guessing, and you're not. It reminds them that their understanding is borrowed, and yours is built in. They tell you to lighten up, that you're too deep, too serious, too intense, but they still come to you when things fall apart, because in the chaos, you're the one who sees the code, the patterns, the root, the outcome before it even begins. So don't second-guess it, chosen one. Don't dilute your instincts just to make others comfortable. Don't pretend you don't see what's right in front of you just to spare their ego. You weren't given this level of clarity to play small. You were given it to lead, to protect, to navigate. What they call paranoia is just what it feels like when you're living 10 steps ahead. They'll never understand how much weight it is to carry this kind of knowing, how lonely it feels to always be the one who knows. But here's the beauty in that. You don't need them to understand. You just need to keep trusting your mind, your vision, your pull. Because it's not wrong. It's never been wrong. Let them call it luck. Let them call it coincidence. Let them joke about your hunches. Because behind closed doors, they follow your every move. They mirror your caution. They lean into your foresight. And they never forget the times you called it before it happened. Ever. Because when the truth finally reveals itself, as it always does, they remember who saw it first. They remember you, and that haunts them. Number 3. They thought you were quiet until your silence struck like a sword. They mocked your silence, forgetting that wolves don't howl when they hunt. They wait until it's time to kill. They thought your quiet was weakness, that your silence meant doubt, fear, confusion, that you didn't know what to say, so you said nothing. But here's the truth. While they ran their mouths, exposing every insecurity, every lie, every crack in their story, you were studying, watching, clocking every twitch, every contradiction, every slip of the tongue. You weren't stuck. You were storing ammunition. That's what they never understood. Silence isn't emptiness, it's restraint. And restraint is power. See, people addicted to control always mistake stillness for submission. They think if you're not clapping back, you're powerless. But you were never powerless. You were patient. You let them walk straight into their own trap while they thought they had the upper hand. They thought you were folding, but you were just sharpening the blade behind your back. You don't strike first, you strike right. And by the time you do, it's surgical. Imagine a room full of people trying to prove something, each voice louder than the last. And then there's you, calm, unreadable, dangerous. You're the one nobody sees coming until it's too late. Because the ones who observe in silence, they're not ignoring, they're absorbing. And when the time comes, all it takes is one sentence, one stare, one move, and the entire room shifts. They feel it, that tension, that discomfort, that eerie sense that you know more than you let on. And that's what rattles them, not your presence, but the unknown behind it. They want to poke the beast just to see if it's real. But once they do, once they realize that quiet doesn't mean soft, it's already over. They were playing checkers out loud. You were playing chess in silence. They tried to bait you, push your buttons, get a rise out of you. But you gave them nothing, no reaction, no fuel, no weakness to latch onto. Because your silence wasn't silence, it was strategy. And now they're sitting in the wreckage of their own ego, trying to figure out how the one who said the least ended up with the final word. Let them think you're mysterious. Let them be uncomfortable. You weren't made to be predictable. The most dangerous soul in the room is never the loudest. It's the one who didn't flinch when everyone else did. And that chosen one is you. Number 4. They panic while you play, because you're the one flipping the game board. They break their backs trying to win a game you've already redesigned and still wonder why they're always 10 steps behind. They follow instructions like scripture, obey the blueprint like it's sacred, think the rules are set in stone, and anyone who breaks them is insane, foolish, reckless. And yet, here you are, calm, composed, doing the unthinkable like it's just another Tuesday. They called it madness until it started working, until their limitations shattered in the shadow of your results. They thought success meant playing it safe, checking the boxes, fitting the mold. You were the glitch in their system, the one they couldn't calculate. You didn't follow their path. You burned your own through the jungle. You didn't wait for permission. You took your place. And every time they said you can't, you answered with, "Watch me." That's what makes you dangerous. Not just your mind, but your refusal to play small. You weren't made to follow paths. You were made to pave them, barefoot, bleeding, unstoppable. Imagine this. They're running in circles on a racetrack, sprinting their hearts out, thinking they're making progress. Meanwhile, you're walking calmly through the woods and still beating them to the finish line. Why? Because you know the shortcut they were too scared to take. You saw the hidden path through the noise. That's not strategy, that's vision. They call you lucky, but luck didn't stay up all night working in silence. They call you arrogant, but arrogance doesn't create results from thin air. The truth? They've been conditioned to fear anything that doesn't fit the program. They were taught to survive. But you were built to create, to bend the world into shape with pure will and fire. You don't break the rules for fun. You break them because they were never meant to hold you. That's why they struggle around you. They try to measure you with tools made for smaller minds and get frustrated when nothing adds up. They try to copy you, but miss the part they can't imitate, the mindset, the knowing, the blueprint that only exists in your bones. And the part that eats them alive, when all hell breaks loose, when their carefully crafted plans crumble, when logic fails, they still come to you, because deep down they know you always find a way. You are the way. You rewrite the rules without flinching and make the impossible look like routine. That's not just intelligence, that's being chosen, and they can't replicate it, no matter how hard they try. Number 5. They can't define your energy, but it exposes them every time. You didn't walk in to make noise. You walked in and the room adjusted. That's not confidence, that's presence. They'll never be able to explain it, not in words, not in logic, but the moment you show up, they feel it, like gravity just shifted. It's not about how you dress, speak, or act. It's not about status. It's the kind of energy that cracks illusions without ever raising its voice. It makes liars stumble over their words. It makes insecure people squirm. It makes the fake ones fidget and the real ones listen. A storm doesn't ask for attention. It becomes the weather. That's you. You don't perform. You don't chase recognition. You carry something deeper, a kind of rootedness, a weight, a silent storm in your spirit that unsettles those who've built their confidence on sand. You walk in with nothing to prove, and still, conversations shift. Eyes lock on you. The atmosphere changes, not because you said anything, but because your existence says everything. They'll call it aura, charisma, intensity, but let's tell the truth. It's not a vibe, it's power, undeniable, disruptive, silent power, and it terrifies the people who've built their identity on being the loudest, the flashiest, the most seen, because they've spent their whole lives shouting, and you show up without a word and steal the room. People feel safe around what's real and threatened by what they can't fake. The ones who are aligned with truth. They feel peace around you, like something finally makes sense. They open up, lean in, feel safe, because you don't just speak truth, you are it. But the ones wearing masks, they get nervous, defensive, cold, not because you attacked them, but because your energy shows them who they're pretending to be. Ever notice how people suddenly change around you? How they get quiet, act awkward, rethink their words mid-sentence? That's not coincidence. That's your field doing what it does, disarming lies, revealing intentions, shifting the dynamic. Without effort, without force, you don't enter rooms, you rearrange them. Your presence is the test, and most can't pass it. And no, they'll never admit it. They'll act like it's nothing, pretend you don't affect them. But deep down, you haunt their thoughts. You linger in their silence. You make them question who they are because you don't just walk in like everyone else. You carry something bigger. They'll argue over what it is. But it doesn't matter because the truth remains. They felt it and they'll never forget it. Number 6. They built their web, and you walked through it like smoke. Liars only fear 2 things, exposure and the one who doesn't buy the performance. They thought they could dance circles around you, spin stories, control the narrative, and have you eating out of their hands. They didn't realize they were dealing with someone who doesn't listen to words. You listen to energy. While they rehearsed lines, you were decoding the silence between them. While they smiled, you were catching the tremor in their tone. You don't need proof to see truth. You feel it, and that alone terrifies them. They tried to manipulate perception to make you question your own intuition, but you were never confused, just patient. You let them talk. You let them dig their own hole, because nothing exposes a liar faster than the sound of their own voice. And when they finally realized that you knew the entire time that their performance was never convincing, That's when panic sets in. They lied like it was strategy. You listened like it was confession. Imagine this. They're telling you a story. Their words flow smooth, their eyes steady, but something's off. The tone doesn't match the energy. The rhythm feels forced, and before they even finish, you already know how it ends. Not because of what they said, but because truth always has a vibration, and lies never hit the same frequency. You can feel when something's out of tune, and once you feel it, you can't unsee it. They called you paranoid, dramatic, too sensitive. That's the oldest trick in the book. Gaslight, the one who sees too clearly. But here's the thing, they only call it paranoia when it's your accuracy that scares them. You weren't overthinking. You were overhearing the truth behind their lies. Every time they tried to twist the story, the universe handed you proof. In timing, in outcomes, in repetition. And still, they acted shocked when their mask slipped. A liar's nightmare isn't being caught, it's being understood without being told. They hate that you don't argue back, you don't fight for validation, you don't expose them loudly. You just know, you hold that knowledge like a mirror in silence, and that silence eats them alive. Because when deception meets awareness, the game is over before it starts. You can't manipulate someone who already saw the end from the beginning. They call you cold because you stopped reacting, but that's not cold, that's clarity. You're not distant, you're done. They lost their power the moment you stopped playing their game, because a manipulator without control is just a fool talking to themselves. They wanted to blindfold you with words, but you saw right through the fabric. And that's why they fear you, chosen one, because they can't hide behind charm, tears, or guilt when your eyes see straight into the script. You make deception look fragile. You make truth look effortless. And every time their lies collapse under your quiet gaze, they realize something they'll never admit out loud. You were never the one being played. You were the one letting them reveal themselves. Number 7. They can score brains, but they can't quantify what you are. They built systems to rank minds, but you showed up and broke the ruler. They've got tests, frameworks, metrics, IQ scores, credentials, degrees, and they cling to them like lifelines because without them, they have no identity. They need those numbers to feel important. But then you walked in, and suddenly the math didn't math. You weren't louder. You didn't boast. You didn't need a spotlight. But you knew. Before they even opened the book, you were quoting the ending, not from study, but from alignment. They grind for knowledge like miners digging for gold. You just are the gold. They stack books trying to reach something you were born carrying in your bones, and it haunts them because they can't explain you, can't measure you, can't replicate what you have. You don't just process information, you download truth from a deeper signal. While they're busy decoding, you're already 6 steps into application. They memorize facts. You merge with reality. They try to put labels on you, gifted, talented, intuitive. They try to break you into categories they understand, but you were never meant to be categorized. Your mind doesn't follow their algorithm. It writes new ones. They try to test you, push you, find your ceiling, but every time they think they've hit your limit, you shift again, evolve again, outsmart them again. It's like trying to trap air in a box. You're uncontainable. Ever notice how uncomfortable they get when you answer something they didn't even ask yet? When you connect dots they didn't know existed? They call it luck, coincidence, even arrogance, but it's not any of that. It's clarity. It's the kind of understanding that doesn't need permission, and that drives them mad. Because they've been conditioned to believe wisdom only comes after struggle. And here you are, living proof that some souls just know. They studied all night and still couldn't touch what you downloaded in silence. They'll never say it out loud, but they're obsessed with finding your weakness, testing your boundaries, hoping there's something you don't understand, just to feel better about themselves. But it never lands, because your intelligence doesn't live in ego, it lives in essence. You don't flaunt it, you embody it. And that's the most terrifying part, because if intelligence must be earned, how do you exist so effortlessly? You're not here to compete, you're not here to be ranked, you're not even on the same grid. They can measure intelligence all they want, but you broke the scale and you're still rising. Number 8. They wear masks for the world, but they unravel under your gaze. They lied with perfect words and perfect smiles, but your silence made the truth scream out of them. They can fool almost everyone. With charm, performance, curated expressions, they wear masks so well they start believing them themselves. But then you enter the room and suddenly the act starts to slip. Their confidence gets shaky. Their energy feels off. The mask? It doesn't crack. It melts. Because when your eyes meet theirs, they don't feel seen. They feel exposed. You were never watching their face. You were reading the static behind their words. You were listening to the friction between their story and their soul. And that's the part they never prepared for. They rehearsed what to say, but they forgot what it feels like to stand in front of someone who sees them anyway. They trained their mouth to lie, but their soul betrayed them the second you looked too long. You don't interrogate. You don't accuse, you don't even have to speak. You are the confrontation, and they feel it in their skin. You see the guilt in their grin, the tension in their tone, the cracks in their charisma. Most people fall for what someone presents, but you catch what they hide. And that, to a liar, is a death sentence. They won't say it. But it's why some people avoid you, why they act weird, defensive, or throw shade behind your back. It's not because you're rude, it's because they don't feel safe wearing masks around you. And for people who only know how to be fake, that's terrifying. You don't destroy illusions with force. You destroy them by being real. You didn't reveal their truth. Your existence made their lie impossible to maintain. And still, some people will love you for it, because being around you is like finally breathing without pretending. They can exhale, be seen, be real, because you don't judge, you recognize, you see them without distortion. And for someone who's been hiding their whole life, that's powerful, that's rare, that's healing. But the ones who thrive in illusion, they'll try to turn others against you, say you're too intense, too much, too cold. But the truth is, you're just too clear, and clarity is the enemy of anyone living in disguise. You don't need to call them out. You don't need to prove a thing. You are the proof, and your presence alone is their unmasking. Number 9. They fought for the crown, but you were the kingdom all along. They built castles out of ego, climbed ladders made of lies, and still couldn't rise higher than the calm in your presence. They claw, they beg, they posture. Every move they make is a scream for validation. They want to be seen, worshipped, obeyed. They want people to fear them and call it respect. And still, you walk in, calm as ever, say nothing, and they feel smaller. That's the wound they can't patch. You didn't fight for power. You are power. Not earned, not borrowed, inherited. They wear titles like armor, flash their achievements like currency. But you don't need status to be seen. You don't need noise to be heard. Because people don't follow words, they follow frequency. And yours hits different. It's that grounded, effortless authority. The kind you can't fake or force. The kind that makes people quiet down without even knowing why. They chase thrones. You carry the gravity of one wherever you stand. Imagine a room full of people performing, competing, shouting to be recognized, and then imagine the moment you step in, without effort, without theatrics, and suddenly all that noise starts to feel irrelevant. It's not magic, it's presence. It's the weight of knowing who you are. That's the part they can't manufacture. That's what breaks them. You never played their game, and still, you keep winning. They try to outshine you with confidence, but theirs is synthetic, built on fear, inflated with attention. Yours is quiet, rooted, ancient, and that silence, that stillness, it speaks louder than their entire performance. You don't lead by force, you lead by resonance. That's why people trust you without needing to be convinced. You don't demand loyalty, you attract it. Because truth attracts truth. Their power is a costume. Yours is your skin. They get mad when people listen to you over them, when rooms shift in your favor, when your calm dismantles their chaos. But what they don't get is, you're not trying to compete. You're not trying to dominate. You just exist, and your existence alone pulls things into order. People gravitate toward what feels real, toward what doesn't try so hard, and that's what threatens them most, your effortlessness. They've spent their whole lives building a pedestal. You became the mountain. They don't hate your power. They hate that no one had to give it to you, that it came from somewhere they'll never access, not because it's locked between but because it requires truth, and they're still hiding from theirs. So let them scramble, let them put on the crown, flash the title, play the king. You never needed a throne to rule. You were the storm, the compass, the force behind it all. And they know it, even if they'll never say it out loud. Number 10. They drown in study while you drink from the stream. They chase knowledge like prey. You just breathe, and the truth walks to you. They treat wisdom like a prize, something to fight for, prove, and possess. They build towers out of textbooks, cram theories like code, obsess over credentials and certifications, thinking the next lecture, the next book, the next guru will finally unlock it. But you walk into the room and it's already in you. Like the moment arrives and your mind doesn't learn it, it remembers. They try to explain you. You must have studied somewhere. You probably read a lot. You're just naturally gifted. But the truth? You don't learn the way they do. You absorb. You don't memorize formulas. You merge with concepts. You don't decode reality. You embody it. It's in your wiring, your design, your rhythm. That's why when you speak, it lands, not as theory, but as truth. You didn't climb the ladder of knowledge. You are the sky it reaches for. Imagine them hunched over desks, studying for hours, repeating what they were told to believe. And now, picture you, watching, observing, breathing in life, and somehow understanding more than they ever could. They chase clarity with noise. You find it in stillness. They download information. You integrate meaning. That's the gap they can't close, no matter how hard they try. They need data. You just need silence. They think you're lucky. But deep down, they know. Luck can't explain how you read between the lines of a situation you've never even seen before, how you sense shifts in people before the signs appear, how you connect dots from different worlds like it's second nature. It's not magic, it's not mystery, it's alignment. The universe streams information to the ones who are tuned in, and you, chosen one, are tuned in deep. And yes, they resent you for it, because you break their formula. You challenge their belief that wisdom must be earned through suffering and years of grind. You are the exception they can't swallow. You exist as living proof that some people came here ready, that some minds don't wait for knowledge, they are the knowledge. They study from books, you study from existence, and that's why they copy you, mimic your tone, echo your thoughts like they discovered them, but no matter how close they get, they never become it. Because what you carry, it's not transferable, it's not teachable, it's soul-level intelligence. That's why people don't just listen to you for advice, they study your energy. They lean in, not because they want information, but because they crave clarity. You hold a vibration that cuts through confusion like a blade. You speak, and the noise goes silent. You don't chase truth. You are what truth gravitates toward. And that's why they'll always come back, not for knowledge, but for you. Number 11. They never stood a chance, and now it's too late to catch up. By the time they realized what you were, they were already beneath your feet. They didn't just underestimate you, they bet their entire identity on the belief that you were ordinary, that you were like them, breakable, predictable, trapped by the same fears and boundaries they obey without question. But you weren't. You never were. You didn't move like them, think like them, or need what they craved. And while they were busy fighting for scraps of attention and fake status, you were building in silence, watching, growing, evolving. You didn't need applause. You didn't need the crowd. Your presence alone broke their illusion, because you weren't trying to be noticed. You were simply undeniable, and that's what made them panic. The loudest ones in the room suddenly fell silent around you. The self-declared leaders stumbled over their own egos. The fake ones got exposed just by standing next to you, because your existence alone showed them what they weren't. They never stood a chance because they were playing for recognition. You were becoming the reason people would recognize truth. You weren't chasing power, you were channeling it. You weren't seeking validation, you were already chosen. Built different from the inside out, and they tried to keep up. They mimicked your tone, stole your style, quoted your words as if they could inherit the wisdom behind them. But imitation has a limit. Essence doesn't. They studied your moves, but couldn't handle the silence that made those moves powerful. They ran their mouths, threw shade, tested you, all hoping you'd crack, react, fold, but you never bit. You let their games play themselves out while you stayed grounded, unmoved. Their need for attention exposed their desperation. Your calm exposed their emptiness. And when the dust settled, they weren't just defeated, they were revealed. They thought they could wear crowns made of ego and expect the world to kneel. But you wore none, and the world still listened. Why? Because you weren't operating from fantasy. You were built on truth. That's the difference. They think power is volume. You know power is gravity. It pulls, it doesn't scream, it doesn't plead, and it never explains. Imagine this. They're sprinting on a treadmill, thinking they're racing ahead. Meanwhile, you're already at the summit, watching the sunrise. That's the level of difference we're talking about. They were chasing trophies. You are the reward. They kept trying to prove something, and you were simply living it. You didn't skip steps. You became the staircase. Let them try to catch up now. Let them scramble to rewrite the story, pretend they were never threatened. Deep down, they know. They felt it. In the way people turned to you instead of them. In the way the spotlight bent your way. Not because you asked for it, but because it couldn't ignore you. That kind of presence can't be bought, can't be faked. It's real, it's rare, and it's earned in silence. They thought they had time, that you were harmless, that if they just kept the pressure on, you'd break eventually. But they were playing checkers while you were designing the whole board. You let them think they were ahead, right up until they realized you weren't even running the same race. You were building a kingdom while they were busy clapping for themselves on borrowed stages. By the time they saw the throne, you'd already outgrown it. And now it's too late. You've outpaced them mentally, spiritually, energetically. They're still chasing trends. You're shaping timelines. They're still trying to get picked. You picked yourself long ago. And they can't stand it, because nothing is more threatening to a fraud than someone who never had to fake it. So let them talk. Let them compare. Let them pretend they're in the same league. You don't need to defend your brilliance to people who can't even define it. You don't need to stoop down to their level to show you've won. The scoreboard is in your silence. The proof is in their obsession. They'll replay your words, copy your energy, study your presence like it's a manual. But no matter what they do, they'll always be behind. Not because you tried to outdo them, but because you were never meant to be matched. Some people are built to follow the rules. Others are born to rewrite them. And you walked into the room they controlled and rewired the entire frequency. Now they're stuck playing a game you already finished. While you're on to the next level, they'll never reach. And that's what will haunt them forever. Not that they lost, but that they never even had a chance. If this message hit something real inside you, don't let it end here. Press the like button if you haven't already. It helps push this truth to those who need it most. And if you're still not part of this growing force, now's the time. Hit that subscribe button and step into the space where the chosen ones rise, awaken, and remember who they are. You didn't find this by accident. You were meant to hear it. Stay sharp, stay aligned, and we'll see you in the next one. The mission continues, and you're part of it now.